And moving right along into our next part of the series. I don't even write scripts for these guys. You know what I mean? I'm literally going off the top. Um, so just putting that out there. All right. So now we're gonna look at ESTPs, which once again, more and more, I'm like, oh, why didn't I just start with all the extroverts and talk about how they bully? That would have been, you would have expected me to do that, but I'm saving the extroverts till now, and now we're gonna dig into, extroversion and how it kind of naturally lends itself towards being a bully. And because of that, it's kind of not their fault. But when you call them out on it, it is their job to rein it in. So when we look at ESTPs, there's a lot there that's going to lend itself to some intense bullying. But you would be surprised that at times, especially if it's a group that they're part of, ESTPs can actually be champions of the week. They can. They can. Alternatively, they also could exploit the weak. But we're gonna get into both in this few minutes that we talk about this. So I think that naturally, when we think about ESTPs, we're talking about people that are masters of the physical realm, even more than ESFPs, because a lot of times with ESFPs, feelings and all that messy crap get in the way. But with an ESCP, you're not going to get that. With the ESCPs are probably the one type that is most likely to be entrepreneurs and successful at it because they have the vigor, they have the risk taking gene just inherently in them, and they get people to follow them. You believe them. When an ESTP talks, you believe it. And so some of their bullying, even though a lot of it can be aggressive or assertive, a lot of it can be a little manipulative because they just have the powers of persuasion. Hello, extroverted feeling in the tertiary spot. And then, not to mention that they've got introverted intuition in their inferior spot. So when they're able to pull from that, albeit it will be in, a little bit immature way, but when they can pull from it, they've got really good source material. Like when you talk about extroverted sensing, and extroverted sensing being the cognitive function of action, and the introverted thinking is them making up their own solutions to things, and then extroverted feeling, which is connecting to people, but in a way that's manageable and that's going to help move along the actions that they want to see externalize and realize. Because you have to understand, they're not going to stop until their wants and desires are externalized in the real world, unlike most of us introverts. You know what I mean? So I think that for a lot of people, their first experience with an ESTP bully was probably in school. It probably was a little bit of a jock, but like a jock that like was gonna go places. You know what I mean? Like not just like a dumb jock, because that's definitely not what they are. It's like they're gonna be masters of the physical domain, but they're also gonna take that and they're gonna do something somewhat fresh, or something new with it. So my experience with ESTP bullies have been in work-related situations in which their confidence and their air and their way of making me feel as if, they kind of own the world around them. I felt like I needed to listen to them. Like I felt like I could get confused enough that I kind of do their bidding for them. If you let yourself or allow yourself, you kind of have to catch yourself when it's happening, because they have a very confident way of, the powers of persuasion. So while you think that their primary mode would be aggressive, and I think that when they're young, it is like a Logan Paul, Jake Paul kind of, throw toasters on fire out the window at their ex-girlfriend or whatever those guys were doing. I think that when they're young, it's kind of like that. But underneath that, you see, and you saw from the Shane Dawson documentary, that they are shrewd businessmen right beneath the surface, where you think like, oh, they're just jocks. No, 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 no. ESTPs are smart. I'm sorry, I got a text. ECPs are smart. They're business smart. They have a pretty good intuition about things, especially things that could be externalized in the real world, which is what we all judge everything by. Um, so I think that you would actually see them being actually quite polite in getting you to do what they want you to do. All right. The ECJ is not going to do it that well because, the J, and then also leading with the extroverted thinking, they won't be able to have as much grace. They don't have enough feeling to pull from. Same with the ENTJ. They're going to not abide by, rules of polite society. They're not going to be polite. But an ESTP will be polite. They will be polite with that aggression right under it, where you're like, you're going to do this because this is what you should be doing because I'm the boss. And they're not going to say it that way, but you're going to feel it. You're going to feel like you need to be doing what they tell you to do. And the only way out of that, personally, I would say is you got to talk to other people about it because underneath the surface, we all have insecurities, and ESTPs are no different. So a lot of them trying to control their environment or influence their environment, comes from the same insecurities that you, me, and everyone else in the world has. So I think that's important. I've seen it. I've seen it with clients. I've seen clients that, I thought were like, mini Jeff Bezos. And then I talk to them and they're so insecure when it comes to their body or their looks or their relationships or being seen as attractive by the opposite or the same sex and because they're so connected to the external world, that's a weakness because I can retreat into my mind. I actually live in my mind most of the time. I'm an introvert and I have introverted intuition. But for them, if they're not meeting the standards of physical reality and society, they're going to feel grossly inadequate. And you know what? They do because we all are, below the standards of what physical society says that we should be. So I think that's important to understand when dealing with them. Like, yes, they have these powers of persuasion, and they've probably been very successful, but they're still, the same person that we all are underneath. And I love working with ESTPs. It can be a little overbearing, but at the same time, they kind of get shit done. And if they don't get it done themselves, then they will get other people to get shit done. And as they get older, they become very polite because you catch more flies with honey than you do with shit. Oh wait, no, but then again, flies love shit. Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll get to that when we get to some of the other types. Um, but either way, that is their natural disposition. So their natural disposition is to be, in control of their physical environment through you. And if you don't comply, everything underneath disintegrates. It's a house of cards that ESTPs create this illusion of being more than what they really are.